Hi guys, so this video is going to be yet another trans video. I know I have a mixed channel, so there's a lot of people who are here for video games, and then there's a few of you here for trans stuff. I'm on both ends. I like video games, but being a trans person, I have to kind of talk about this. On occasion, I do get the typical idiot who posts things on my channel or post things on my videos, and they love to say the same things all the time. And I don't let it bother me, because to be honest, a lot of the things that they say are baseless. They don't have any actual intelligence in them, and they're always the same type of message. People like to say that I will always be biologically male, but I think that comes down to what is someone's definition of biological in any gender or sex. Because if I look at it from a chemical aspect, chemically I am the same as any woman. I have the levels of estrogen as a pregnant woman. So in that aspect, I guess chemically I am a female. But again, it comes up to people's definition, and everyone has their own assumption. Another thing people always say is you're always going to be male, deal with it. But I really think that there's much more to a person than what's between their legs. And I think that if these people actually knew me and interacted with me in the real world, I think that they would understand that there's nothing male about me. Yes, I curse like a sailor, and a lot of people say that's a male trait, but trust me, that's not. I know a lot of cis women that curse a lot more than I do. But overall, I just think that this country desperately needs education. They need to actually look up the studies that are out there and understand that it's been very well documented, a person being transgender. There is still a large population of people who believe that this is a choice. There's a large population of people who think this is a religious issue. There's a large population of people who assume that a trans woman going in a woman's room is going to be a risk to their child, their daughter or their wives or their sisters or whatever. But the common thing that I see from my perspective is that all of these assumptions, again, are baseless. They don't mean anything because they're not coming from a standpoint of actual evidence or any sort of proof. The thing I like to go by is statistics as well as actual documented proof of anything. And there are absolutely no documented cases of a trans person assaulting sexually or even any person in a bathroom. There hasn't been a single case. And trans people have existed for hundreds of years. And I think that that's another common thing that people just don't get. They assume that this is a thing that only started popping up last year, and it's not. Trans people have existed for many years. It is, in my personal opinion, I really think that this is classified as a birth defect. And there's people out there who are like, no, this is psychological. This is because you're crazy or you have mental issues or you're unstable. But again, there are cases, studies that were shown that trans people are hardwired that way, and it's not necessarily a psychological issue. It's more of just a biological issue. Humans don't understand our brains. They don't. We cracked the DNA code back in 2003, and it's just that thing that we don't understand much about the brain at all. And we know that a person being trans, there's something about their brain that makes them that way, and no amount of counseling or medications or anything is going to change it. And trust me, I wanted to not be trans, if that makes sense. I know it's improper English, but I don't want to be trans. I don't want to deal with these struggles. I don't want to feel emotional pain every day because I don't feel like I'm, good enough or anything of that nature. I just want to be a normal person, and at this point, it's like I would rather be normal in any way, a normal guy or a normal girl. I just want to be normal. I don't want to have to deal with the struggles that I deal with on a daily basis. And I think that people need to take a step back and look that there's much more to being trans than just popping hormones, getting surgeries, and changing your wardrobes or the way you act or putting on makeup, growing out your hair or whatever. There's a lot more to it. The entire process to get your name changed is a pain in the ass. It requires around $400 to $500. It requires a lot of patience and having to get paperwork done by legal counsel and getting a lawyer to sign off, a judge to sign off on it. Getting your gender changed in every state has a different rule. And there's some states that are very, very strict about it, and they force trans people to go through surgery. Luckily in Nevada, they don't. In Nevada, you can just get a doctor to sign off and say, hey, you're taking the appropriate steps to get to live your life authentically. So the appropriate steps in anyone's definition, every doctor is different, but my doctor believes that, well, if you're, living your day-to-day life as a female, presenting yourself to the world as female, that's good enough. There are some doctors that would say, no, actually, you need to be taking hormones and doing everything above. And then there's some doctors who believe that you need to have the surgery, a $30,000 surgery that requires up to 2 months of recovery time. And that would be the definition of actually, attempting to live life in this world as your authentic self. So you have to understand all those alongside with the fact that every state does it differently. And you start to understand that for us trans people, it's very difficult because everyone's different. Everything is just totally different. Trans people do have a higher rate of unemployment. I definitely think that a few of my job opportunities I have come across have been yanked away from me strictly because I'm trans. Yes, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that that's part of the reason why. I've had an HR manager ask me flat out what bathrooms I'm going to use. They asked me if I had the surgery. They asked me if I will ever show up to work dressed as a man. They asked me, all sorts of invasive questions that I strongly believe should be against the law. But people assume that because you're trans, you're this magical, freak show character, that nothing is off limits, that any question is perfectly acceptable. And to me, that pisses me off. The way I look at it is, however you would like to be treated, treat us the same way. I'm sure you wouldn't want people asking you every day, oh, do you have a dick or a vagina? Or, oh, did you get the surgery? Or, oh, do you dress as a woman or a man? I'm sure you wouldn't want these questions asked to you, but understand that because I'm trans, these questions will always be asked of me unless I'm completely stealth. And unfortunately, it's hard. It's really hard. People say, oh, how come you haven't changed your voice? And I haven't given it an honest shot. I really don't work towards it because I don't believe I should have to change my voice. My voice is my voice. I don't understand. Yes, do I want my voice to sound more feminine? Of course. I want nothing more than to be normal. But, it's very, very frustrating. Another aspect that's a problem is when filling out paperwork for employment. So when I have to fill out job applications, I apply to every job as a female. I apply to everything as Catherine. Well, they need to do a background check on you. So they ask you for other names used. So no matter what, you're going to be outed by something. And that's another aspect that I really wish there were protections in place for people like myself, because why should my employer have the right to know that I'm trans? I don't think they have the right to know. They can inquire about my professional history. They can inquire about my criminal history, but other than that, there's nothing else they need to know. And I really wish there were better laws in place that protect me from workplace discrimination, because it does exist and it's ridiculous. You know, the other issue, of course, is insurance and healthcare. Doctors and all that, they can be very rude and cruel. When I had a respiratory infection, I went to an urgent care here in Vegas, and the lady was just so rude about me being trans. I show up with this, you know, a tank top on, a skirt. I'm in so much pain from being sick. You know, I show her my driver's license, and it still has, you know, my old picture from like 2 or 3 years ago. And, you know, she's like, at first, she's like, "That's not you." I said, "Yeah, it is." And she didn't believe me. I said, "Look, I'll pull down my pants if you need me to." You know, and I was just so pissed. But then afterwards, they always call me sir. And I don't understand why people assume that that's the way you're supposed to treat this. Same thing with police officers. They do the same thing. I've heard countless stories about this, where they assume you're female at first because you look like a fucking female. But then the moment you show them your ID, then they say, "Sir, sir, 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 sir." And then when you question them on it, they're like, "Well, no, that's proper etiquette." No, it's not proper etiquette. If I wanted to be called sir, I'll dress like a man. I don't want to be called sir. I want to be called miss. That's what I am. That's who I am. But people assume that they can just do whatever the fuck they want, because that's the way this world is, right? If you don't agree with it, you can just do whatever the fuck you want. So, I don't know. I mean, this entire video is just not really planned out well, but there's just a few things on my mind, and I just got done writing something to some moron on my channel, and I mean, I deal with morons every day, and I just think you need to understand that before you write, "Hey, oh, you'll always be a man, deal with it." It's like, how the fuck do you know? Are you a doctor? Are you a professional in the medical field? Do you actually study these things? No, instead you're just some jackass with a keyboard and the internet. And all you do is just, you know, say, "Oh, well, trans people are in the news all the time, so let me go search up transgender on YouTube. Oh, look, it's Jack the Bomb's videos. Wait, let me just write something nasty because I have to." And it's like, you know, like, you wouldn't do that to my face. But you'll only do it because you can hide behind the keyboard, and you're probably thousands of miles away from me. But luckily, I do not deal with this shit in public. I don't. To be honest, I get hit on a lot out in public. To be honest, there are people that constantly look me up and down and check me out. I'm not kidding. I'm not, you know, trying to toot my own horn here. I'm serious. Men make it very fucking obvious that they're checking me out. And I mean, it's difficult to deal with because I'm adjusting to that. I didn't grow up with, "Oh, look, yeah, men are going to constantly try to get in your pants." I didn't grow up that way. You know, no one raised me with that mentality. So it is kind of off-putting that the people that used to respect me as a guy are now trying to hit on me and stuff. So it is what it is. But I really would like you guys to just, before you judge a trans person, just look at the hard facts. Don't rely on a news source by a Christian network, which there are Christian websites that put out news stories on trans people, and they are heavily biased against trans people. They're not actually speaking facts. And I think you guys really out there, do yourselves and people like myself a favor and just give us a chance. You know, you will find that trans people are normal, everyday people. They have the same struggles as everybody else, just with this additional struggle on top of all that. You will find that they are very intelligent people. You will find that they're very methodical, very analytical. You know, I find that the majority of trans people I meet all love video games and technology, and they're extremely bright people. But instead, everyone just poo-poos them and just shuns them and treats them like crap because they're trans, instead of realizing that these people are the same ones that could make your business successful, could roll out, you know, really big corporate networks, They're very well spoken, but no, you just can't see past the whole trans thing. People just can't see past that for some odd reason. So I just really want people in the year 2015 and 2016, I want people to just take the time, take the 10 minutes to look at the history of trans people. Take a look and understand the struggles. Read the stories that people write. There was this one that was very well written by the New York Post or New York Times. It was written yesterday, and it's about an 18-year-old trans person. I will have a link below to this news article. Read it. It's a very well done news article about this girl who started her transition at the age of 16, and she had SRS at the age of 18. Why she disclosed that information, that's totally up to her. She has every right to do that. Personally, I wouldn't. But, I think she's a very pretty girl, now woman. And, I hope the best for her. I have so much sympathy for my trans sisters and brothers out there, because it is not easy at all. Instead, everyone's like, oh, cry me a river. Oh, you don't have it as hard as a person born without a leg. It's like, the moment you throw that in our face, you're basically belittling us and saying that our issues don't matter. And they do matter, because when I can't even go into a fucking bathroom without the risk of some jackass who has a bounty out on us, which California fucking did, where they pay people thousands of dollars to rat out trans people who are just trying to fucking use the toilet and be on their merry way. Instead, no, people have to assume that, wait a second, you look like a trans person, which, trust me, some trans people, you couldn't even tell the fucking difference between them and cis. The irony of it is that a cis woman actually was flagged as being trans, got arrested for using the women's room, which is complete irony in the entire thing. But the point is, people out there are creating a hostile environment that rewards stupidity. That's what it's doing. It's rewarding stupidity. Here's $100. Go find a trans person and rat them out. That's essentially what they're doing. So you want to ruin someone's life, someone who's not harming anybody. And again, if you look up the statistics and look up the actual documented cases, there are absolutely none. There's absolutely no documented case of a trans woman, which in this case people assume trans women are all pedophiles for some fucked up reason. Fucking Michelle Duggar and her jackass family. I'm sick and tired of it, because we protect and reward stupidity. We allow jackasses out there who, preach the wrong message about us. They're treated like royalty while we're treated like complete shit. And it needs to end. So I'm done with this video. It's longer than I want it to be. But I just want people to use their fucking brains for once, because I think you will find that trans people are really cool. The majority of my friends are trans, and, they are the coolest people I've ever met. They would have my back if I was ever in danger, and I would have their back as well. Because you should never judge someone based off of them being trans or not, because you don't know what they go through. And I wish everybody in this fucking world would go one day through the struggles we go through, and I think people would have a lot more respect for us.